Hey there, I'm going to do a quick video on, well, probably not that quick, on installing the factory Can-Am BRP door latches into the X3. I did the driver's side door yesterday, and it is a bit of a pain in the butt. You got to really take your time. There's a lot of parts and pieces that need to be done just right, or it can kind of look funny or not line up right. But let's take a look at what they are and what we've done. It's kind of dark in my garage here. Sorry, I'm trying to rig up my light here so you can see. So there's the door latch in the stock door. You can see little exterior pull handle. It actually works really nice. Clicks in easily. And then on the inside, you've got this new plastic trim piece and a red pull handle. You can see that activates the latch as well. So when you're inside the car, you go here. It works really nicely. I've gathered all the parts and pieces. You can get the instructions on BRP's site. It'll tell you in here somewhere tools needed: a jigsaw, a riveting tool, 9mm drill, and a 7mm drill. I can tell you that's not even close to what you actually need. You can see I got all kinds of parts and pieces here that I needed to get it done. One thing, first starting point is getting the factory door off. I will say, when you do this, I would put a little bit of WD-40 on these guys before you take them off. There are these little welded nuts here in the frame, and one of those broke off on the other side. They were super tight, and I tried to take it easy getting it out, but it broke. So I just found another lock nut that fit the bolt. But anyway, do some WD-40 on those. You pop these two out. You pop this rivet off of the door, so you take a drill and drill that out, and then the whole door will just lift off. And then we'll take some parts and pieces off of this. We'll get rid of the trim piece, get rid of the, you have to pull the, or pop the rivet out of the handle, the pull strap, pull this piece off, and then we'll get the frame kind of disassembled, and then I'll show you the next steps. Alright, I got the panel off, started some disassembly here. So there was one screw that went here, one that comes out here. This is the rivet that came out from the door retaining strap. While you have this one still in place, I would drill out the rivet here for the pull handle on the latch. The lower part already came off. It's just two screws and a 10mm nut that holds those on. Super easy. And then here on the bottom side, there is one more rivet that you have to drill out. And then this whole red piece slides to the right. There's a little hook here, and you undo that, and everything comes out. All right, so now we've got the inner frame disassembled, and I've taken the template, I cut it out directly on the lines. This one's flipped over backwards because this is the one used on the passenger side. And you've got these two little notches that kind of seat it up onto this plastic piece. And then I just tried to make sure that this lower edge here was very parallel to the door frame. And this, there's a little curve in the door right here. I tried to make sure that that runs really parallel to the latch handle on this top edge. If you get that right and then tape it down nice, it should give you a decent spot to cut the hole. I'm going to use a Dremel with a small drill bit. So I just drilled a decent size hole to get a pilot hole to get started, and then I used a Dremel and buzz around the inside of that template, and I started a little small and then trimmed some extra out as I went. Alright, so you can see I've cut out the hole for the plastic receptacle, and I've drilled the 7 holes. I started with a little bit smaller pilot using the template. The hole locations are on the template, and cleaned off some of the excess plastic. It gets hidden underneath the plastic, so as long as you clean the door pretty well here. I'm going to use some isopropyl alcohol real quick, and there's some adhesive that holds this. You can see, you take this little stuff off of that cup, and there's foam there with some adhesive on it, and then that'll all stick through. And then we've also drilled, so on the bottom side of this frame, this hole gets drilled out. and you can see I'm trying to make it parallel to the hole next to it. Yesterday I didn't do quite as good a job, and these holes don't matter quite as much how big they are, because I think that the bolts that go through them are smaller than the holes anyway. You just need to get them so that when you put the latch mechanism in, which goes under here, under this, and then those two bolt there, that dictates how this plastic handle fits in this receptacle on the other side. So when I did it yesterday, at first, this was rubbing the top of the receptacle, and I had to really fiddle with how all that was adjusted. And I did that mostly by fiddling with these holes and getting them moved around, and I had to wallow it out a bit, but they're all kind of hidden, so it's not that big of a deal, and there's not that much pressure on them. So now I got to go clean up the door panel and install this. Then we install the latch mechanism into that and start putting a few more things back together. All right, so I've really cleaned off this little area, about an inch around this hole here, and then we're going to lay this on something that won't scratch, and we're going to put this receptacle in from the underside. I would start with this back edge. You'll see these things are all lightly angled, so kind of pull this back edge in and work them all in. You have to take this tape off first, and then you'll use these little push nuts, look like that, and you push these things down, leave the little elevated part to the outside. Can't get where you can see it here. Yeah, there, maybe you can tell. And you leave that to the top, and then you use, I've been using an extension, quarter-inch extension with like a 8 or 10 millimeter socket on the end of it, and you just push those things down as hard as you can, and they seal up around this, they'll seal it up around this template or this cutout, and pull it all tight. One thing I would say is actually getting your socket handle on here helps you push a little bit more on these things, which I'll probably grab right now. Yeah, this gives you a little bit more leverage to push down on them once you get them started. I've worked my way around. I kind of do a few opposites so I get some pressure on a few different points before I get too far. This one's a real pain. And because those little plastic pieces are on an angle, it's very hard to get them started. They are just a bugger. Sometimes I just give up and go to another one. Okay, end result looks like that. Check your foam around the edges, make sure it's sealed up nice. That should be pulled in pretty good. I think that's going to work. Okay, so I've got this fitted up in here a little bit, so you have to lift this bottom part up a little bit as you put the plastic handle into the receptacle. You have to make sure, it's hard to see, that this white slider, you see there's these two little sticky things that you put on that are let that slide. There's one on the inside, and you have to make sure that that one is on its slider as well, and the one in there is close. It's almost missing it, but it's okay. And then you got to fit this guy back up over this little plastic tab here. And once you do that and you sort of get stuff lined up where you think it's going to go, then I would check this side and see how your handle, no, it's not easy to see on this right now. See how your handle works here. And it's moving nicely and it's parallel to the receptacle, so I should be good. So now I can start assembling the latch. I have now put the latch back together. You turn this guy into this little receptacle on the red handle, and once you've got it where there's, now that I've got it installed, there's actually not much slack at all, but that's because I've adjusted this outer one. So what you look at is right here, this top of this little piece here, and this little finger on the latch mechanism. You want there to be no space there at all between those, so that when this moves, so this is going to have a light movement and then snaps that. And from the outside handle, I've adjusted this barrel so that this is nice and snug, and this is what you turn to make this line up right on the top of that, so that when you pull the outer handle, it also pulls the latch. I might make it, it's a little quick on the outside one, so I'll probably actually lengthen this just a touch again. That will make it not quite so sensitive, but overall everything's back together. And now I've tightened this back down, tighten that back down, tighten these back down, tighten these two down lightly, and this guy, and everything's pretty much ready to go back in the car. Alright, so we've got a finished product here. Nice clean trim on the inside. Handle works nicely. When you're testing it, you can just push this little guy up till it clicks, and then check your handle, and also check this outside one. I've got about 1 inch of pull, and then it comes out, which seems to work pretty nice. Get your door realigned. The door panel, you want to get where, you can't see it right now with this up in here, but this metal piece here is just at the top edge of the brace here when it comes in. So I got it set there, then I tighten these two bolts, and it lines up pretty nicely and snaps in without lifting or without popping up or down. So that's it. Handles are in. Overall, they look pretty good, and I definitely like the way they feel and look. So, job done.